After Effects and Photoshop work hand in hand, and that relationship is an important part of the video production workflow. What this means is you can work on projects inside Photoshop and import those Photoshop files into After Effects, and they will look exactly the same as they looked inside Photoshop. And there are a few other added benefits. If you apply layer styles to layers inside a Photoshop document, when you import that Photoshop document into After Effects, you can retain those layer styles and be able to edit them and animate them. That's a huge thing. And you can also take text layers that you create inside Photoshop, bring them into After Effects. They come in as regular layers in After Effects, but you can convert them to what's called editable text, which adds all kinds of features and possibilities to those layers. But there are a couple of little gotchas that I want to point out. So I'm going to demonstrate this. I'm going to start by taking a look at a file in Photoshop. If you have Photoshop and want to look at this file too, it's called pstext for ae.psd. If I go File, Open, you'll see that it is inside this folder here, the Other Assets folder inside our Working Files folder right there. And what it consists of is a bunch of text layers, and then one additional layer where all those text layers are merged together. The text layers are those guys, each one a separate layer, and this is the merged one on top that I'm turning on and off here. I put the merged one on top so that you can see the difference between how the original ones look and how they look after you bring them into After Effects. So here we've got these individual text layers, and each one has a different layer style applied to it. For example, this one here is a drop shadow. If I click on the effects there, you can see there's the drop shadow applied inside the layer style dialog box down there. If you look down the line here, you can see inner shadow, outer glow. Scroll on down here. EE, for example, there is inner glow. FF is bevel and emboss. You can see how we go down the line here. The last one here, LL, has a preset or a style applied to it. If you go over here to styles, you'll see you have various options for styles, and I applied that style to this guy. And the style consists of a number of layer styles. This one includes something called a pattern overlay, and it's important to notice there's a pattern overlay. Also, if you look at, let's say, this one up here, the drop shadow, let me show you that one. Drop shadow, if I take a look at it inside the layer styles dialog box, you'll see that it has a contour that's different than the normal contour. The standard contour is like that, and the contour causes it to look a little bit different. See, it has that soft edge around it there? Okay, that makes it look a little bit different in terms of the standard. I also applied a contour to this one as well, so we'll see what happens when we import this into After Effects. And I'm going to import that PSD file. So I'm going to double click on an empty space here in the project panel and import this guy by double clicking it. We're going to get this dialog box to say, what do you want to do here? I want to bring it in as a composition. I'm going to retain the layer sizes, and I'm going to make editable layer styles. That's the important thing there. We're not going to merge our layer styles into the footage. We want them to be editable, which is a powerful feature. So I'm going to click OK. That brings in this guy as a comp with all the layers down here like that. I'll open up the comp now, double click on it, there's the comp. I can turn off that top layer so you can see there's the text and there's the top layer. So let's take a look here. I'm going to zoom in a bit here. I'm going to go to 100% here by either going 100% like that, or I can click on the / and that goes to 100%. I'm going to take my hand tool by pressing down the space bar that turns it on temporarily. And we're going to look around here and see what happens. Everything looks pretty much the same. We're looking at the top text, that's the actual text layer, and the bottom one is the one that we merged to see if there's any difference in terms of how they look when you bring them into After Effects. And you can see that they are the same. Now what's particularly interesting here is the pattern overlay. This is what's called a pattern overlay. If I look at KK down here, I'll open that one up and look at its layer styles. Let me open that up a little bit. It has a pattern overlay layer style. But if I right-click on any layer here, for example, let's right-click on that one and say, look at layer styles. You look at the list here, there is no pattern overlay option inside After Effects. You cannot apply a pattern overlay layer style inside After Effects. But here we're bringing this guy in down here, and lo and behold, it has it applied there. So it brought in this thing called pattern overlay from Photoshop and also displayed it here as an editable thing. It's not something that sits there just for appearances. I can now edit this as well. I can say, I can offset the actual size of it. See how it moves around like that? I can scale it up or down so that it gets larger or smaller in terms of its sort of graininess. I can change the blending mode to, let's say, multiply. Looks completely different. Go back to normal here, like that. So pattern overlay comes in. And we have a pattern overlay on this one as well. If I click on LL and open it up, that's the one that had the preset, the style. Open up layer styles there. You see that we have a bunch of layer styles there, including pattern overlay. So it came in just fine. I can change its scale as well. I see how that works. that actually is editable and keyframeable, despite the fact that pattern overlay is not offered inside After Effects as something you can apply to something, but it does come in, which is pretty cool. So that's all working too. And if I look at the top here, I'm going to hold down my space bar and use the hand tool to go up here. These two guys had these contours put on that were not standard contours, and they came across too. They look the same. You can't edit the contour here inside After Effects, but at least it came across looking the way you created it in Photoshop. All right, this is all well and good, but let me show you what happens when you convert this to editable text. I'm going to go Shift / so you can see everything there. I'm going to convert all those text layers to editable text. There are many good reasons to convert these guys, which are just standard layers now, into editable text, because we have more options. If I open this up there, you're going to see that we have the typical transform property group, and that's it. But I'm going to show you what happens when you convert it to text. So I'm going to select that first one, and then shift-click the one at the bottom here, not the background layer, but the other text layer there. We now have all these text layers selected. As long as I got them all selected, I can apply the same thing to all of them at once. Now I'm going to open up the context menu. I can right-click here. It says Convert to Editable Text, or I can go up to Layer and go on down here to Convert to Editable Text. So I'll click on that and watch what happens. They're no longer PSD layers. They are now text layers. See the T in front of them there? They've all been changed. If you remember before that they had a transform property group, now they've got something else. So I'm going to deselect all of them by pressing F2 and open up this one here to see what a typical layer looks like, and open up this one to see what a text layer looks like. Now that we have a text layer, we have this additional text property group. And inside the text property group, we've got some more options, including a path option. We can put text on a path and move it along the path, which I'm going to explain in the next lesson. So that's an important thing. We have a source text property, which means we can change the text and have it change instantly over time. So I can change it from a different font to different words, different colors, one after the other. Also, this option to animate the text, which is really the most powerful feature regarding text inside After Effects. I can now have this text animate on a per character, per word, percentage basis. It's really a phenomenal thing. So now that we've converted this from a standard layer to editable text, we have all sorts of possibilities open up to us. But let's just see the little gotchas that I told you about. I'm going to zoom in a bit here, and you're going to see what happens to a couple of things after you convert to editable text. I'm going to zoom in by just pressing the / key, going back to 100%. And I'm going to pull this guy down a little ways. Now I want you to look at the sort of the before and the after. This is how it should look. But here's how it looks after we convert to editable text. We lose the contour. The contour feature reverts to the default contour, which is a straight line contour if you are understanding how contours work. But at any rate, you can see that that little extra edge there is gone. So the custom contour has gone away and the standard contour shows up here. This next guy had a contour applied to it as well. This is the custom contour and this is the default contour. So that gets lost. Contours revert to their standard contours if you work with Photoshop files and kind of get that old contour thing. You're going to see that there's a little downside in terms of the contours. They go away when you convert them to editable text. Also, let's scroll on down here a little bit. You'll notice that this is different as well because this too had a contour applied to it. So that changed pretty dramatically. The contour really defines how this thing was going to look in terms of these edges here. And that just goes away to the standard contour for the bevel and emboss. And then scrolling down a little bit farther to the pattern overlays, and you see that they're totally wiped out. This one had a pattern overlay around the stroke. That's gone now. This one was a pattern overlay layer style, and just forget it, it's gone. And this one had several layer styles applied to it, and one of them, pattern overlay, just flat out disappears. Now what's kind of strange about this, and I think it's kind of a bug, let me just scroll down here a bit, I'll show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to go to KK here, and go to layer styles, and lo and behold, there is pattern overlay, but it's non-functional. I can drag the numbers around, but nothing is going to happen here because pattern overlay just stops working when you create editable text. So be aware that if you go to this great trouble of creating a pattern overlay layer style inside Photoshop, and then you bring it into After Effects and hope to have this become editable text, all your work with a pattern overlay will be just eliminated. So just be aware of that. Despite these little drawbacks, I think you can see that this relationship between After Effects and Photoshop is an important part of the video production workflow.